Hey everyone, today I'll be going over FPS movement and FPS camera movement all from scratch. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. First I'm going to make a platform for our player to stand on. So I'll just make it plain, and I'm also going to make this a tiny bigger. I'm also going to call this ground. Go ahead and make it bigger. And what we can do is I'm just going to add a material to it. And I'm also going to create a new hierarchy here. I'm going to create a 3D object from capsule. It's going to be our player. I'm also going to create a empty, and I'm just going to write a player empty and drag our player onto that. And I'm going to rename player to player body. And I'm going to give it the player tag. We can move this up, and we're going to need to give it a few things. It already comes with a capsule collider, so we don't need to adjust this. We are going to need to give it a rigid body and freeze its rotations by going into constraints. We're also going to make it interpolate and move up the mass to 1.5. Just like so. Now I'm going to create a folder, and this is going to hold our scripts. I'm just going to create a new script. This is going to be our player movement. I'm going to be going over normal movement, sprinting, and jumping. Okay, so I want to be as organized as possible. So we're just going to create a header. And this header is just going to be our movements. And we're going to make a serialized field, and it's going to be our private float, and it's going to be our move speed. And you can set its default to 25. No, actually set its default to 50. You can also make this a slider to make it easier to edit in the input in game. As you can see, we have the inspector. It makes it easier to edit in the inspector. So we go back here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy these two. And again, I'm going to change from range 100 to about 50. I'll change move speed, and this is going to be our sprinting speed. It's going to be, I'm going to say it's 25. Whatever our sprinting speed is, so this is going to be added onto our normal movement. So if you were to do 50, then your move speed will be 100. So I'm just going to make it 25. We're going to create another one, and this serialized private float is going to be our jump height. So how high we want our player to jump. And I'm just going to default this to about 20. Just like so. We're just going to create another header. And this is going to be just called other. I'm going to create a private rigid body. I'm going to call this RB. Go to our start here, and we can write RB equals get component. Then we're going to be getting our rigid body, just like so. We're going to avoid update, and we can start adding our movement. So that's, we're going to create a float, and it's going to be our horizontal float, so our horizontal movement. And we're just going to write input.getAxis horizontal. Now make sure horizontal is spelled exactly like that. And times this by our move speed. I'm also going to be times this by time.delta. Do this again, but for vertical. So this, and make sure vertical is spelled exactly like that. Like so. Then we're going to write a transform.translate, and then we're going to do a new vector, and then vector 3 and then our what we call our float, so our har, and then we're just going to do a vertical, and then we're going to need to times this by our move speed and our time dot delta time. Time dot delta time. So this is just our movement. So if we actually head back into Unity, you can see that we have got a movement, and we have to drag this onto our player. And you can see we have a few things here. Now the only thing that actually works right now is our move speed. If we hit play, you can see that we have got to move a character, which is perfect. But we're gonna add sprinting onto our movement now. So we're just gonna go ahead and go down here. I'm gonna write if inputs dot get key down key code dot and then left shift. You can do any key you want. I just prefer left shift for sprinting. Then we're just gonna do our move speed plus equals our sprinting. So like I said earlier, this is going to add how many onto our move speed, so 50 at 25, and you can just write else if then input dot get key up key code dot left shift. So the same key, then move speed, but we're going to be taken away this time, and boom, that's all sprinted. If you head back into Unity, we now have move and sprinting now functional. So you can see we move in, and we hold left shift, we can sprint. Next we need our jumping, so we're just going to add a jumping script, and to do that we can write if input dot get key down key code dot space, and we want to write a new float which is going to be our jump velocity. So I'm just going to call it jump velocity equals our jump height, so what we put up here, so jump height. Now we're going to do rb dot velocity equals vector 3 dot up, since we want to be going up, times our jump velocity. Okay, so this is perfect, but there is one slight problem about this. When we go back into Unity, we have a working jump height, but as you can see, we can just keep going up for infinite, so we don't want that. To fix this, we can check if our player is grounded. So we can do this by if grounded, and then just put off if into this if. And we're going to need to create a new boolean. So private boolean okay, so a boolean can only, the reason we're doing a boolean is because a boolean can only read if something is true or false. So you want to detect if we're grounded true or if we're grounded false. So we can do this by creating a new function, so a new void. This void is going to be a public void on collision enter. Rename the collision to other. And we can do if other dot game object, so our ground dot tag is equal to ground, then grounded equals true. We're going to do this again, but for a on collision exit, we name this to other, and do if other dot game object dot tag is equal to ground, and then grounded equals false. Okay, so now this is all functioning. We have a move speed, we have sprinting, and now we have a jump height. And then now we have a grounded that detects if we are grounded. There's one thing we are need to do. So if we go save this, go and select anything you want to not be able to infinitely jump on. So here's our ground. Go to the tag. I'm going to add a tag, and this tag is going to need to be the exact same as you wrote. So ground. Go back here. You can create a new tag and name it as ground. And now, as you can see, we can now not infinitely jump. However, I am a bit floaty, so we are going to go to File, Edit, Project Settings, Physics, and we can just change this to something like negative, I don't know, 45, I don't know. See how this works. And as you can see, I'm less floaty. Okay, this is all working. However, we cannot look around, so we want to look around. So we're going to create a new script. And this is going to be going onto our camera. So create a new script, and we're going to call this camera movement. And we're just going to open this up, and I'm going to write a header to keep organized. So we should create a header. I'm just going to call this the camera settings. And we're just going to write a serialized field, and this is going to be a private float, and this is going to be our sensitivity. I'm going to set this default to 200. Let's go ahead and copy this, paste it in again, and rename this to sensitivity multiplier. And I'm also going to make these two a slider. We're going to range brackets 0 between 200. Copy this, paste it again. I'm going to make this one 10. Make this 1 float. Okay, so we are going to need another camera setting here. This is going to be our transform. So what we want to be looking, so I want my player to be looking, so we're going to make a public transform, and then our player body, we are going to need a private X rotation, or you can just simply not even need the private, you can just write float X rotation. We'll set its default to 0. Okay, so in our void start, we're going to make it so our cursor can't move. So our cursor dot visible equals false, and a cursor dot lock state equals cursor lock mode dot lock. If you'd like to exit cursor, you can always just press escape. I'm going to go into our update. I'm going to create a float, and this is going to be our mouse X rotation. So our mouse X input dot get axis mouse X. The reason it is mouse X, and it has to be spelled like this exactly, because if you go back into Unity and you go up to here and you're in the edit project settings, input manager, you can see that our mouse X is spelled exactly like this. So make sure it is mouse X. We are going to need to times this by a sensitivity and our sensitivity multiplier. So it's like so, and times this by times the delta times. Go ahead and copy this whole line, paste it in again. For anything that resembles an X, replace it with a Y. Okay, now we are going to need to do our X rotation. Minus equals mouse Y. This is reason it's negative equals is because normal equals is inverted. So negative equals is non-inverted. So that's why it needs to be like that. We do another X rotation equals math f.clamp, and this is going to clamp our rotation, so we can't just like look up and then just keep looking up. We want to have some sort of limitation. So we do X rotation and we do -90. We are going to need to do a transform.local rotation equals quaternion.euler, and then our X rotation 0f 0f. Then lastly, we need our player body.rotate to be our vector 3 dot down dot up times our mouse x times mouse x. So this is our simple movement now. So that's literally it. If we want to now make this work, we are going to need to drag our main camera and make sure to put it on top of the player body. What I like to do is create an empty, call this camera, put our main camera underneath it, and then drag that on. Now what we can do is we can go onto our camera and put it on the top camera, so not the bottom, the top. Drag our camera movement on. Now we can drag our player body onto this transform, and now we have a working sensitivity. Before you do that, make sure you go to your main camera and reset its transform. I'll do this for both, and it will put it in the player. I'm just going to move it up near the top, and now if we hit play, you can see that we have a working player movement. Okay, so the issue we are having is that I made it so in the player body, I made the interpolate, make sure that's just on none, and then when you hit play, everything should be working, and it feels all nice and smooth, and we have a working camera. One thing I like to add is a crosshair, and you can simply do this by creating a empty, calling it crosshair, right clicking it, UI, and then a image, and then just calling this the crosshair image, and this will automatically be put in the center. If it's not and it's in like another corner, you can click this, hit Alt, and then hit the middle, and then you have your crosshair. You can just add a default like circle and shrink this down to something like 10, and then you have a crosshair.